Hello, I'm Allison Nowak from St. Stephen's School in Grand Island, and I'm here today to introduce you to an amazing academy for grades K to 2nd called Our Superpower Senses. This is an exciting and hands-on way for the students to learn and explore each one of their 5 senses and do a lot of hands-on fun activities that'll keep them engaged and learning at every step. Now, to get started, the first thing that you want to do is go online to www.getepic.com and set up an account to explore the books that are available there. Some of these books you will use in your activities, and they can be found at getepic.com, whereas others, we have 2 that are included, which I will show you in a minute, and some are available as read-alouds on YouTube. But again, definitely want to start there with an account on getepic.com. Now, our superpower senses. Let's take a look and see, first of all, what's going to be included in your kit. Okay, so here we go. What's in the kit? Included with your kit, you will find the following items that will help you to go through each of the activities that you see in all of the sessions, numbers 1 all the way through to 10, like this one. You will also find earmuffs, which are nicely packaged for you inside of a drawstring black bag. You'll find items such as a craft kit, which can be used to create animals when you get to Mrs. Wishy-Washy's farm. Nice little craft kit with lots of different materials in that. Soap. Smells nice too. Ooh, a scrub brush. Leather. Looks like this. A metal bucket and plastic farm animals, also for Mrs. Wishy-Washy's farm when you get to that point. You will find fabric, which is already nicely cut up in individual squares for your students. Starburst candies for the sense of taste. A spinner for your sound game, which is nicely laminated and has 2 different boards, just to give you an idea of what it looks like. Looks like this. And you'll notice it doesn't have anything in the center to spin. So for this particular game, it does tell you in the instructions, you'll need a pencil or a pen or maybe a marker, whatever would work to go ahead and make that spinner happen. You'll also find in the kit faux fur, a USB stick which contains everything and anything that you might need for this academy. Looks like this, little tiny blue USB stick, and again it has all your support materials, anything extra that you might need to print and so forth, you'll find on this USB stick. A piece of rough cut wood, or a few pieces for your students. And finally, cardstock, so that you can go ahead and print the support materials and other materials within the academy and on the USB stick as many times as you need, laminate them, and make them useful for many sessions to come. Notice that it's also listed, there are some items that are not included in this kit, which are very basic items, things that you can find outside in your garden or around the household or just within the classroom, and they won't cost much of anything, if anything, maybe just a little tiny amount, which I'm sure you can get reimbursed for. So that would include, not in the kit, a stone from a garden, dirt from a garden, paint, something small and not specific, like so, and a toy truck. General classroom supplies are of course needed for this. You're going to need to have markers, construction paper, crayons, pencils, and glue, the usual items that you would find right there on your tables for each of your students. So again, those are the things not in the kit, but the most that you might have to spend money on is this little tiny bottle of paint. So not bad at all. Everything else is included, and this is extremely self-guiding. So let's start with session 1. All right, so session 1, what are the 5 senses? Of course, a lot of students already know their 5 senses. In this day and age, they're on iPads and tablets and things like that at a young age, so they're already practicing things that go along with the 5 senses. So they may be bringing a lot of prior knowledge to the table. Always important to talk to them first about it, see if they can name all the senses on their own, and if one student doesn't know maybe 2 of them, another student might be able to fill it in. So always good to engage them together and talk to them about what they already know and how things might work. So in this first session, all it is naming, exploring the senses, and then a special extra added part, which is about empathy. So connecting to our religious values, our Catholic values, I should say, and showing empathy for someone who may not have a sense. So if they lost their sense of sight or their sense of hearing, what would that be like? So this is a really great session to get you started and get the ball rolling on what you're going to be exploring and experiencing further as they go. So session 1, it's all about, like I said, naming. So first we name and explore a little bit with a reading. So the book for this particular session is called You Can't Taste a Pickle with Your Ear. And it's a really fun book that poses a lot of great questions that you can ask the students as you read through it. The discussion itself is going to be about 15 minutes. And this is just them connecting to each one of those senses and, again, bringing forth that prior knowledge. What do they already know? So all of our senses are received by our brains, and that is the biggest point that you want to get across to your students. First one you want to start with, the sense of smell. How do we connect smells to memories? We smell, for example, cookies that are baking, and we think of our grandmother's house. Or we smell something like a pine tree, and we think of Christmas, even if it's not Christmas time. Things like that connected to our memories, again, shows the students, and you want to ask them, is it your nose that's doing the remembering, or is it your brain showing that connection again? The next one is the sense of touch. How do we know not to touch something that's hot? Was that something that we knew when we were born, or was it something that we learned by experience or by being told? And how is it that we remember that? Is it that our finger remembers that something is hot? Again, it's our brain that does that. Then you go to sense of hearing. How do certain sounds make us feel? So a sound might make us feel scared, or it might be surprising, or might make us happy or sad. And of course, is it the sound that has that? Is it our ears that are doing the feeling? No, it's when we hear that, we think with our brains of that emotion. Then you go into the sense of sight a little bit, just remembering people's faces, parents' faces since we're tiny babies, as well as our brains just always remembering what we see to continually help us throughout every single day. And finally, the sense of taste. The sense of taste is linked to the sense of smell, so it's important to talk about that. When you smell something, what do you think it's going to taste like? Again, connecting to the brain because they already learned that the nose is not the one doing the analyzing, it's the brain that's telling it that's that smell. Okay, so then you get into the empathy part of it, and this is where your blindfolds are going to come in very handy. Could you imagine if you could not see or hear is the question you want to pose to your students. So you use the blindfold, and you have a tray of all different kinds of classroom materials. You could have items like a pencil, a crayon, a marker, a bottle of glue, a dice, anything that you might have available if you have small foam shapes. Those are great to use too. Then a student will blindfold themselves, feel the items, and then be able to describe them by touching them or so forth, and try to describe them to a partner. That being said, the point of this is that they are now not able to see, so they lose one sense. So now they're empathizing with someone who might have that same problem or issue. And what happens to the other senses when that occurs? If you don't have your sense of sight, what happens with the other senses? Well, they really step up their game and they come in to help out. Our superpower senses come to help. There are 2 YouTube links that are attached to this particular session, and they are Understanding Deafness and Lauren Goes to School. These 2 are very good for the students to watch, and so if you have that extra time at the end of your session, then you can go ahead and show these to the students just to give them a little bit more of that empathetic side of what happens when we don't have a sense. Okay, so now on to sessions 2 and 3, our sense of sight. This particular sense takes 2 sessions because there's a lot of fun activities. It's jam-packed, full of really great hands-on and fun things for the students to experience and learn from, as well as create and do themselves. So where you start is, of course, they're going to be exploring their sense of sight. They're going to be able to identify the different parts of the eye through their reading of The Magic School Bus Explores the Senses, only the section talking about our sense of sight. So that would mean pages 6 to 20 to be specific. Now, they also get to discuss and talk about how do the brain and the eye work together. Then they get to have some really great times designing a field trip. They're going to design an outfit for Miss Frizzle. They're going to enjoy designing maybe a school bus for that field trip and just really have fun trying to follow her through the story because as we all know Miss Frizzle, she's pretty hard to miss. And a very important thing to point out to your students is that her dress usually tells them a clue as to where they're going next. That being said, the next thing that they're going to do is they're going to get to, in session 3, explore optical illusions. Now, as children, we probably all remember doing those optical illusion books where you would hold it really close, pull it back, and you might find an image. The ones that are available here are a little bit simpler, and then there is a way for students to create their own op art and make their own op art design book, which is really fun and exciting for them, of course, as well as for the teacher. These activities I've found when I've tried them, they're really, really fun to do even on your own and when you're testing them out before presenting it to the students, especially the op art. It's probably my favorite part. Okay, so session 2. Let's get more specific. Included in your kit, you will find that you have 2 books. The first one is The Magic School Bus Explores the 5 Senses. And the second one is for when you get to the sense of hearing, and it's the listening walk. Again, both of these are included in your kit. Now, in the Magic School Bus, there are a lot of places that you're going to need to stop on between pages 6 and 20. So here I have the book, and I'm going to show you what to do as you do your read aloud for The Magic School Bus Explores the Senses. So, you're going to go ahead and read through, but you'll stop on page 11. Page 11 has a beautiful little diagram which tells you about the muscles in the eye. So this is a point to stop on and discuss with the students, how does your eye move? How does it move up? How does it move down? How does it move all around? And for them to practice a little bit looking up, side to side, down, and so forth. So really exploring those muscles after they take a look here at the fun fact on the side. After that, you're also going to go ahead and read 12 and 13, but still stop on these to discuss specifically the colored part of the eye, the iris, and then the pupil, the black spot. Have the students turn to a partner and see if they can point out where the iris and the pupil are on their partner's eyes. After you read that Frizzle fact down here at the bottom, this is the really fun part, and I know we've all tried this before. Students can then see with their partner how the pupil changes depending on how much light you put in or take out. So it's a really fun thing to cover your eyes and see how the pupil changes when the light is reintroduced to it. I always giggle and love that part. So then you continue your reading. You stop again, page 14 and 15. Because page 14 and 15, as you can see, has a really fun and very full diagram here. So many little facts and places to stop and talk about with your students. You're going to point out the different parts of the eye in the diagram and just really discuss how the brain and the eye work together. The next page that you're going to stop on is page 17. So you'll read through 16 and stop on 17 specifically to talk about the blind spot that we have in our eyes. Students can talk about it first, and then afterwards they can do a little test to see if the shoe here disappears like it says it's going to when you talk about that blind spot. Next, page 18 talks about the brain and the eye, and how the brain's vision center works. So you'll go ahead and stop and show them this, discuss it a little bit if you'd like, or just kind of just show them and have maybe some students volunteer to read some of those parts out. Finally, on page 19, best part, the optical illusions. So you're going to go through this page and talk about how optical illusions will trick our brains, just like Miss Frizzle's dress that she's holding with the faces or vases question, the size of the dress on the side, and the letters H and A in the cat. All these fun little spots to stop and talk about when you get to optical illusions. Okay, so then you're going to go all the way back to page 10, where this occurs. And this is how you're going to put together your anchor chart. So the students are told on that page, well, the police officers say, or I'm sorry, the bus driver says, don't lose sight of Miss Frizzle. And then the students reply, no problem, she's hard to miss. Then a police officer comments, that's an unusual car. I'll keep my eye on it. So you talk to the students about what does that mean. Have them then use their sense of sight to describe how Miss Frizzle's unique appearance makes her hard to miss and what makes her car unusual. You can record the students' answers on the anchor chart. So for that you have two different things here. We have, here's your pieces for your anchor chart. So you would put this, Miss Frizzle's, you would of course cut these out. Miss Frizzle's unique appearance would be something that would go at the top on one side, and then Miss Frizzle's unusual car could go on the other side, and you can have the pictures with it if you'd like, all fun and colored in if you have the time to do that, but it's up to you. They can even come up and maybe color in. If you print this out, you can have them coloring in or designing a spot on the car or a spot for Miss Frizzle. But really you want to make sure they connect to adjectives and describing what they see. Okay, so that is session 2, and from there they are going to design the unique outfit or school bus, or both, depending on what you have time for. So those are specifically field trip outfits, all included again within the binder as well as on your flash drive or USB that you have. So we have one for a girl and a boy, and then the school bus. Now, once they've designed and created their outfits or their school bus, the next step for them is to talk about what it is they are going to see on this field trip. So there are several different types of writing prompts you can go through. So this one is if they're, very skilled at writing, I'd say probably for second grade, you would have them writing out where they're going and what they will see. Depending again on the skill levels, you can have here, there's a tracing one. We are going to this place, what we will see. They can do listing if that's easiest. And then there are also some ones with talk bubbles available. So if they would like to just go ahead and draw a picture and say what that picture is of in their best ability, that's another option. Especially for the kindergarten, it's always nice for them to be able to draw a picture of what it is that they're trying to get across. Okay, now on to session 3, the best part. This is all about optical illusions. Now, included in your optical illusions, you are going to, of course, first go back to what you talked about and read in the Magic School Bus, maybe show them that page number 19 again with the optical illusions. But then you also have available to you an optical illusion slides show, PowerPoint show, that you can show to the students. And then as you're going through them, discuss what they see. They include pictures such as these. We've got a hidden panda, the mug that looks like there's a hole in it, the face with the tree branches, faces and vases, the classic, and then it almost looks like this polar bear's head is separate from its body, which is kind of silly too. This one shows movement when you're looking at it. This one also shows movement. The dots will move and change colors depending on where they're looking. all of which spur a little bit of discussion, and the kids really get a kick out of all of them. So the slideshow for the op art is also included in your packet or your binder, as well as on the USB stick. It's under, of course, the Sense of Sight. You will see that there is a folder that shows you can go ahead and click on the PowerPoint for op art. Now, these would include pictures like these, showing drawings that have been made, and of course, still doing that discussion about how it tricks our brain. What do they see? What does it appear to be? But what is it really? What are the shapes? Things like that. And like I said, there's a whole bunch of them on your slides. Now, the best one to stop on and talk about is this particular one, which is a heart. The students are actually going to have the opportunity to create something just like this. And so that's why I would recommend stopping on this and talking about, interesting, how do you think the person created this? Again, all of this is included. This is everything that you need is in that specific USB section labeled Sense of Sight. So big design book, or you can choose to do a small design book if you're going with the smaller patterns. Another great thing about this is they are holiday driven too. So if you are around Christmas time doing this particular academy, you can do the candies. If it's near St. Patrick's Day, shamrocks. Again, each one with a big one and the smaller tracers. You can have some fun and get more sciencey and go ahead and do planets or even rocket ships. I would recommend you stick to 2, depending on what's going on in the school year or what point in time you're at, because really you'll have students asking for so many different ones. So I recommend only printing 2 of them and sticking with a theme. That way it makes it easier on you so that students aren't like, I want this, I want that, and then it becomes a little bit chaotic. Then once they've done their tracing, they are going to cut it into not cut it, but they are going to then make it into a book. So we have the small book again and the bigger book, depending on which size and choice you'd like to go with. And these are just very simple. Like I said, the blank paper that they've already traced on goes in this. Once they've traced their item or their particular shape, what they're going to do next is follow your instructions to trace the heart with a pencil, do specific start here, stop there instructions for the lines and the way that they are to make the lines, all of which is very, very thoroughly explained for you in your session 3 Sense of Sight. Another really handy thing for you to take a look at to help you to explain this, if you would prefer, there is a step-by-step picture of how to do, specifically how to do the hand op art, but still very helpful so you can show the students what to do, lines, and so forth. Okay, so that is session 2 and 3 at a quick glance, really quickly for you, broken down as best as I can, without showing every single detail and doing them for you here on screen. Now, also included are many different links for you to take a look on YouTube, and it may be fun to play one of these in the background as the kids are kind of getting the hang of doing the steps that you've shown them and tracing and trying it out for their first time. There is how to draw a 3D hole and stairs, how to draw a 3D whole heart, op art tutorials, 3D hands, art spinner, all different ones that you can take a look at, and those again are included under session 3, the Sense of Sight. Whole bunch of different ones, really fun to take a look at, even fun to explore on your own, and that's where I started, was to explore these different op arts, and they're really fun to watch. Now, let's move on, session 4 and 5. Okay, session 4 and 5 is all about our sense of hearing. So the students in this session are going to be able to define, discuss, and find examples of onomatopoeia, which is a super fun section. You're going to see in just a moment the YouTube onomatopoeia alphabet and some other really fun things during this. I'm going to show you the game as well. They'll also discuss differences in sounds throughout the story that I showed you earlier, the listening walk. Again, included in your kit. Then they're going to take a listening walk with you outside or virtually and get to experience the sounds and talk about the sounds in their own listening walk. Finally, they're going to explore how sounds make us feel. Again, touching back to session 1, where you talked about the sense of hearing and how certain sounds can make us feel certain emotions. Okay, so how do we go about doing these sessions? First, you're going to go back to that, like I said, session 1 and have that brief discussion with them. Always make sure that when you switch to the next session that you're touching back upon the topics that you talked about in the previous sessions. Remember we did this? Well, now let's apply it to that. So make sure you're always, communicating to them what they've already learned, bringing forth that knowledge that they've been gaining along the way. Then you're going to go ahead and introduce this word, onomatopoeia. Super exciting because the way that they're going to examine this or analyze it or use it a little bit more is through this really fun and interactive onomatopoeia alphabet by Jack Hartman, if you're familiar with him. So the YouTube video is called Onomatopoeia Alphabet, and I have it here to show to you. And if you're not familiar with Jack Hartman, he's really fun. Okay, so you get the idea there. That is Jack Hartman, and of course the alphabet goes through different onomatopoeia words, and the students get to make that sound as well as they then get to tell us where they might hear that sound. So very, very fun, and they do get to move around. This is a good time for them to get up and move and maybe even make the motions of whatever it is that they're going to tell you that sound comes from. So that is, again, Jack Hartman. Super fun if you've not used him in your classrooms yet. He's really something. Okay, next up, you're going to go ahead and display an anchor chart with some pre-made headings. So tell the students what this story is all about. It's about a girl who, while she walks, she hears different sounds. And as they read, you want them to remember the things that she saw and the sounds that each of those things made as you go. So, for example, just to kind of give you an idea, they go through the sprinklers. And the sprinkler noise is... So they're also practicing ways to form different diphthongs and things like that. So really great ELA connection with your sounds and hearing. Okay, so after that, reading aloud, and you stop periodically, like I said, to talk about what the sound was and what it was she saw. Maybe have them say the sound with you after you demonstrate it. And then you will provide them with a whole bunch of little speech bubbles. So the speech bubbles are awesome because you're already going to have this set up. The listening walk. This would be your title at the top. And then what she saw would be one of your categories, and what she heard would be the other one. So displaying them on either side of your anchor chart. Then in the talk bubbles that are provided, what they're going to do with those, these little talk bubbles, speech bubbles, whichever you'd like to call them, you can write down the sound and then stick that up on the chart. Or they can actually go ahead and draw a picture next to the sound, things like that. And this is just fun because you're categorizing, you're organizing out the sounds together for what it is that she heard on her walk. Then you're going to go ahead and discuss how those different sounds that she heard, for example, the ones on the street versus the sounds in the park, What are the difference? Are they loud? Are they quiet? Are they noisy, etc.? So coming up with some more adjectives, again, doing that ELA connection to see if the students can connect the words with what they're hearing. Then, of course, you want to talk about how something can make different sounds. The father's shoes on the sidewalk, for example, in your story, versus father's shoes on the path or at home. The different sounds that a car makes, the sounds of a sprinkler, etc., just like I showed. Then you can have them share all of their opinions on what sounds they like to hear, why they like to hear those sounds, or what their favorite sound might be. And then you can also talk about what they don't like to hear and why they don't like to hear that. Then comes the really fun part, which is the Guess the Sound game. This game is very fun and it's interactive. So let me take you to this slideshow so you can see. Hopefully you can see this. And I'm going to go ahead and show it for you. Okay, so it says, can you guess the sound? What made this sound? And each one of these has its own little play button. So you play the sound. And what I would recommend is that you actually have students close their eyes as they hear these sounds. And that is, again, a PowerPoint that is listed under the sense of hearing on your USB drive, easily accessible to play. Go ahead right from your smart board or smart TV, whatever you're using within your classroom. So a lot of different sounds are played, and the students have fun guessing what those sounds were. For example, they can raise their hand and say what it is. You can make it even more of a game if you'd like them to write down or draw a picture of what they heard and then go back and see how many they got right. There's a lot of fun ways to make that sound game work. So now it's time for the students to go on a listening walk outside or virtually. So you can go around inside the school looking for sound, or not looking for sounds, but listening for sounds. You can go ahead outside if it's a nice day and your students are, have been inside all day. It's a great way for them to break, that mundane routine where they're just always in school or always in the classroom doing something and they don't move around very much. Take them outside for the listening walk. It's a really fun and exciting adventure for them. You can also do any of the virtual ones that are available to you. As I said before, you always want to take a look at that USB. Under the USB session 4 and 5 of hearing, you will find a whole list of virtual walks that you can go on. So this list looks like this. And you have many different options, as well as they're broken down by time. For example, the first two, A Walk in the Woods and Tour of Manhattan, these are really long listening walks or long videos on YouTube. So you want to fast forward to different parts or maybe bookmark where you want to start time-wise and how long you want to do the listening walk for, depending on what amount of time you are given or have available. There's an elephant herd in Africa, penguin and seal colony, all sorts of really fun ones that you can also connect to not only the listening walk, but you can connect to maybe what you're doing in science with your students at the time. For example, with the penguin and the seal colony, maybe you're learning about different ecosystems at this time with your students in their science. And so that's a really great connection for them, not only working on their sense of hearing and exploring the 5 senses, but also connecting to the science that they're learning in your classroom. So after doing the virtual listening walks, if you'd prefer to do an extra one, or if you just X-nay that all together, then you get to move on to the best part, which is the Mystery Sound Spinner game. Choose a student to come up, choose one of your 2 spinning boards, and make sure that these are kept away from the other students so no one can see what sound ends up being landed on. That student will come up, spin your pencil or your pen, and then whatever sound it lands on, they have to imitate it and see if the other students can guess what it is that they are making the sound of. You can do this as many times as you'd like. You can repeat it for as many times as you'd like, maybe do all of them or so forth, or maybe go through each one of the students depending on how big your group is. Then finally, you get to talking about emotions and sounds and how they are connected. So the last part of session 5 is going to be about how do sounds make us feel. For this, you will pass out the Sounds Make Me Feel book that they're going to create. And the pages cover emotions such as happy, sad, scared, calm, excited, nervous, surprised. Those are all the different emotions that they're going to draw a picture of something that makes them feel that way for each of those labels. And then they get to share their books with a partner and take them home to share with their families. Okay, then you get to move on to the next session. Of course, before moving on, you can choose also to do some extension activities. Perhaps you want to touch back upon them later on in the academy itself. Once you've finished, maybe you'll have extra days or extra session time that you can go back to this sense of hearing for the read alouds and extension activities that come along with that. Okay, on to sessions 6 and 7. Okay, sessions 6 and 7 are sense of touch. Students in these two sessions will explore the sense of touch through a sensory tub that aligns with the story, which is Mrs. Wishy-Washy's farm. They will also learn to use adjectives to describe the items that they're feeling, and they'll use fun materials to create their own animal to go to Mrs. Wishy-Washy's farm, and they'll use adjectives to describe the way that these animals feel in different situations, if they have paint on them, if they have dirt on them, etc. So, with that being said, here's how to do sessions 6 through 7. First, of course, you want to go back to that session 1 and touch upon the information that you've already taught them or talked about and have a discussion about what they already know about their sense of touch and how they might use it. Then discuss what you might need to take a bath: a tub, water, soap, shampoo, washcloth, towel, etc. Anything they can come up with. How do each of those things feel? Does the towel feel scratchy or soft? Does the washcloth feel scratchy or soft? Things like that. Show the cover then of Mrs. Wishy-Washy's farm, and you're going to go ahead to YouTube to find the read aloud for that, and the students will be able to see it as well as hear it, and make sure that they are paying attention to the animals in the story and why it is that they don't like to have a bath in the beginning, and what are those reasons that they don't like to have the bath. So just to give you an example of that, I do have Mrs. Wishy-Washy's farm pulled up here for you. So very easy to find. Here's your read aloud, and it takes 4 minutes, 25 seconds. So you're not taking too much time away from your session. But make sure, again, that the students are paying attention to the animals and why they do or they don't like baths. After the read aloud, you're going to ask the students, again, why is it they don't like that particular bath? For the cow, it's the soap in the eyes. The pig, it's because he's scrubbed all over, etc. You'll see and you'll hear as you go through the read aloud. During the read aloud, you want to stop after the duck receives the bath to ask those questions, and then you'll continue reading and stop again after the animals have paint all over them and discuss why they ran away and why they think that the city will be better for them, and then how their feelings change after they've been to the different places in the city. Also discuss how they might feel being covered in paint. Continue your reading and then stop after the animals are in jail. Discuss why they don't like being in the jail. Ask students to predict what will happen next. Read the next 2 pages or let the read aloud continue, and remind the students that the animals called Mrs. Wishy-Washy mean before they ran away to the city. And then discuss why they changed their minds to calling her Dear Miss Wishy-Washy at the end. Finally, once the read aloud is over, talk to the students about how their feelings, the animals' feelings, changed, and now they do like taking the baths at Mrs. Wishy-Washy's farm. Once you've finished your reading of Mrs. Wishy-Washy's farm and discussing all of the animals, their feelings, and how certain things on them felt, etc., you're going to then tell the students to imagine that these animals got dirty all over again. And you're going to show them a pocket chart, like so, that has an incomplete sentence. So a sentence that they're going to have to decide who their character is. In this case, I chose the pig. And what it is that they fell in. I chose for this one sand. And these are all included in your printables. You can print them in color, you can laminate them, etc. The only part that's not included is, of course, how the students are going to say that particular thing that they fell in felt. So they'll take turns, they'll choose their character, like I said, such as the pig, to complete the sentences. So, pig fell in, and my choice, sand. Or in this case, the student's choice, sand. Then it says it felt, and they have to come up with the way that that particular thing felt for that animal. They can brainstorm and come up with many ideas of how it might feel, and then they can choose a food or another substance that the animal could fall into. They can brainstorm again how the animal felt, and then hopefully come up with that descriptive adjective to describe the thing that they're saying that they fell into and how it feels. You can write the word on a sentence strip, which is also included in your kit. And as you can see, they're quite long, so you can use, one for several students. Cut them as they write the word that it makes them feel like, or what it feels like. And then, of course, read the sentence all together. So some of them are really silly. For example, if an animal falls in noodles, that's one of my favorite ones, is the noodles or the syrup or yogurt. Here's the noodles. Super funny. And the kids get a kick out of making these sentences, of course. Finally, at the end of session 6, the students are going to explore Mrs. Wishy-Washy's farm tub sensory bin together. So for this, you're going to need a bin of a decent size, enough for students to each be around one edge of the tub itself and be able to touch the different items that are inside of it. In this bin, you're going to put your stone, fake fur, feathers, leather, the metal bucket, paint, soap, scrub brush, dirt, rough cut wood, and plastic animals, toy truck, and fabric scrap. You will then need to provide a small amount of water and have each of the students touch and describe each of these things on its own. Then add water, for example, to the dirt to create mud. Add soap to some water to make soapy water, just like in the wash tub in the story. Put some mud on 2 of the plastic farm animals and describe how that feels. That's their first step. Then they can put some of this paint, like I showed earlier, onto the animals and describe how that feels. Then they can go ahead and let those dry, the mud and the paint, and then describe how it feels yet again once it's dried on the plastic farm animal itself. Of course, you want to talk about those changes and make sure that the students are coming up with these adjectives to describe each of the objects and how it feels. You might even want to, depending again on your level of learning or your level grade-wise, you may want to make sure that you create an anchor chart for adjectives so that the students have a little bit of guidance in finding those adjective words to describe what it is that they're touching and feeling. Session 7 is all about creating an animal for Mrs. Wishy-Washy's farm. These animals are going to have many different tactile features, so of course it's important to provide them with a few different materials or a lot of materials that have different types of textures. So students will need glue, tape, or staple, those sort of materials to put their animals onto the construction paper. But of course, with anything, you want them first to brainstorm. So brainstorm what animal or a list of animals that Mrs. Wishy-Washy might have on her farm. Then you can supply them with this variety of materials, like I said, lots of different textures, such as felt, fabric, feathers, beads, bubble wrap, cardboard, beans, pipe cleaners. The list goes on and on. Something very helpful are the items that you can find in this craft kit that you're provided with in your stream kit. Then once they have all of their different ideas for their animal, they choose their animal, and now they have all of the different materials to create a very textured animal, they can begin their design. Once it's complete, once they've stapled the animal or glued the animal onto their paper and they've really decked it out with all the different types of materials you've provided, then they can go ahead and share their animals with the other students in the academy, and each one of them can go through and feel the animals and say the different ways that each part of that animal feels depending on how it was created by their classmate. So that is your sense of touch, really quickly broken down for you, and a little bit of demonstration and explanation for you to properly go ahead and teach that sense and explore that sense with your students. Now on to session 8. Okay, so session 8 and 9 are sense of smell and taste. Remember back in session 1 that we said that those two senses are connected. Our sense of smell and our sense of taste, they always go hand in hand. So again, like before, the objectives here are that students are going to explore both of the senses. They're going to connect those two senses not only to each other, but also to how our brain interprets them. And then we are also going to do different things such as testing out foods and learning different taste categories, such as the ones I have here behind me. So of course you want to set up a pocket chart. I don't have a pocket chart available specifically, so I did just kind of make my own makeshift one to show you kind of what it would look like. But in your pocket chart you would have these different headings for the sense of taste. And of course you want to also be prepared with some YouTube videos. So that being said, first thing, like each of the sessions before, you're going to have a discussion about what students already know, bringing forth the prior knowledge as to what do they know about their sense of smell and their sense of taste, and how we use them. Then you're going to tell the students that the senses work together, just like I stated before. And you're going to watch the first video, which I have here, which is Your Tongue, the Tastemaker by SciShow Kids. And I have that, of course, here on YouTube for you. Let me take you over to YouTube to show you what that one's all about. Here it is, Your Tongue, the Tastemaker.
What's your favorite flavor of ice cream? I know mint chocolate chip. It's sweet, tangy, or strawberry. You know I have a favorite flavor. I love you, tell me the rest. Isn't it great that we get to enjoy so many different tastes? From ice cream to so
Okay, so you get the idea. This is all about the tongue, the tastemaker, and how it works. And then they're going to go into each of the different tastes. Okay, again, you get the idea. You're going to show this to your students. It doesn't take too much time as far as what it shows. It's only a 3-minute and 51-second video that will tell the students all of the things that you're already talking about before they see it. Okay, so back over to here. Once you finish that video, you will go ahead and discuss with the students the 5 different taste categories and all the foods that were mentioned within the video. And you can also point them out again on your pocket chart. After you've done that, and you've placed these in your pocket chart, brought your students' attention to those, you will then read The King's Taster. There are read-alouds that you can find, but again, if you go to that getepic.com, you're probably going to find this book as well, and it'll be there available for you to use for this specific session. This will identify different foods, and you want the students to talk about those or point out those foods as you read the story, and then you can sort them into the different categories on your pocket chart. As you read, of course, they can be given the sentence strips again to write down the foods to make it easier for you. So instead of making a chart If you're using a pocket chart, that way you can place them into the pockets. If you're doing an anchor chart with these, you can always write them onto that as well, depending on your preference and what you have available. So here are some of the discussion questions. You have things such as, what is Max's job as the king's taster? What does it mean that Max eats like a king? A saying that we all are very familiar with. And if Max likes the food, why didn't the king like the food? What senses or clues did Max use to uncover the real reason for the king not liking the food? And what was the reason for the king not liking the food? Then you can take all of the different foods that have been written on these strips, cut them apart, like I said, put them in your pocket chart, or write them up on the chart if that's what you're doing, chart paper instead. Then pick a food and discuss where it fits. So once you've cut them apart, where does it go? Help the students to categorize where that particular food lies in our words here for describing taste. Next, you're going to do a blind taste test. This is the super fun part for all of the students, because in this, they get to have A, a little bit of candy, and B, it's just fun because they have to be blindfolded and guess what those flavors are. So this is also kind of a game for them as well. So you'll show 4 different Starburst candies wrapped. So you'll have to unwrap some of these packages, unless you can get your hands on one that, this is included in the kit, but if you can get your hands on one that they're just individuals, that can be easier too if you run out of these from your first session of doing it. Tell the students that they're going to do this blind taste test, and they're going to have to try to guess the flavors, and encourage them to experiment with tasting the pieces of the candy on different parts of their tongue so that they're trying to see if it does taste different depending on which region, the sweet, the salty, the sour, the bitter, which region of the tongue they're tasting it on. Then see which one they think gives the strongest flavor of those categories. You can do this in 2 different ways. First thing, you can have them close their eyes and get half of a Starburst and then make their guess out loud and repeat it for each flavor. Or you can place the numbers 1 through 4 at the top of your pocket chart. The second way that you can do this taste testing game or blind test game with the students is to place numbers 1 through 4 at the top of your pocket chart. Then give your students a ripped up piece of red, pink, orange, and yellow construction paper. Have them close their eyes, or you can utilize your blindfolds again, and give them again a half of a Starburst to taste. So the students will then take that little piece of construction paper and they will come up to your pocket chart and place it in which one they feel corresponds with that. So, for example, like I said, if they think that number 1 was strawberry, then they can take their pink piece of construction paper and put it underneath number 1. Then at the end, you have these really fun little cards that you can go ahead and put to tell them what the actual flavor was. So in the end, once they've all done all 4 of their guesses, put their construction pieces into the pocket chart, then you can reveal with these what the flavor actually was. Very fun guessing game for them to do. And again, they love to have a little piece of candy anytime. So very fun. Now, as an extension, you could bring in an actual orange, lemon, strawberry, and a cherry and have them actually taste those to compare to the candy flavors. That's a really fun extension activity, and just judging by session 8 being so quick and short, or however long it takes you to read through the King's Taster and watch the videos, you may have time for that. So you may want to be prepared and have those items available for the day that you do that. Now, once you've done that, you move on to session 9, which is all about how smell and taste, again, work together. In this sense, you want to play for them Jim Henson's Sid the Science Kid, the book read aloud that's called What's That Smell? They will name and discuss pleasant and unpleasant smells in this book. And of course, with your students, you're going to talk about these different words that they use within the book, such as smell, aroma, and odor. Then after watching Sid the Science Kid and discussing those 3 words, smell, aroma, and odor, you'll go on to watch what's called The Stolen Smell. And it's a folktale read aloud that you can find on YouTube. I have both of them available to show you. However, I feel that, just looking at them here, you can kind of see along the side of my slideshow the two different ones. And they're very easy to look up, as well as the links are all provided in your breakdown of each session. Easy to click on and bring up right away if you're using a smart board or a smart TV. Now, your discussion questions are how are the cheerful neighbor and the greedy baker different? Use your senses to tell what you can see, smell, taste, touch, and hear all in the bakery. So now you're connecting all of them. Since we are on the very last part, which is that sense of smell and taste, this is important to touch back upon all the ones that they've been learning before and make sure that they can connect, even if it's a different story and character that they're discussing. Then you want them to think back about what they learned from Sid the Science Kid. How is the neighbor able to smell baked goods in the stolen smell if he's not inside of the bakery? And how does stale bread taste and touch back to feel? How does it taste and feel? And why does he still happily eat it? Really fun discussion questions. It goes all the way. You have discussion questions A through G to help you as you read and discuss the stolen smell. Some extension activities that you can do with this that I find to be really important, because again, there's not a lot when it comes to sense of smell and taste. Yes, they are connected, but there's only so many things you can do with it. So the extension activities are really fun, and I feel that you may have time to do them. So you can bring in other foods for them to taste and smell, such as, I don't know, there's a list here for you: ginger, pickles, grapefruit, medium or spicy salsa, whatever you might choose that might fit under the categories that we saw before for the taste, the different types of taste. Then they can discuss how plugging their nose affects what they're tasting, just to show that connection again between taste and smell. And they can also have a blind taste test of different potato chip flavors. That's a really fun one. Another extension you can do, and then they have to guess the flavor. And they can compare the taste of fruits to fruit-flavored candies or to jelly beans. So if you can get your hands on some of those Jelly Bellies that have all the different fruit flavors, maybe having a couple of other ones besides the Starburst fruits for you to go ahead and have the students compare. And so that is session 8 and 9. Finally, you'll come to the end of your academy, and session 10 is all about further explorations. So just now at the end of session 8 and 9, I was discussing with you the different extension activities and how they can really expand the exploration of each of these senses as you go through this academy. Now, what you can do in session 10 when you have that time is your further explorations and creating your own experience. So going back to op art, maybe going back to the sense of sound and making the rhythm band like I had discussed during our sense of hearing. For that session, ask the students, it's always important to put it out to them, what is it that they enjoyed the most? So really get an idea of, let's see, what were your thoughts as to everything that you learned? And which part was your favorite? What would you like to do more with? And they may choose to do more op art, they may choose to do, more of the taste testing, etc. And that's why, like I stated before, this is an academy that is just packed full of plenty of expansion and extension activities for you to do for each and every one of these senses. So again, if you haven't done it, one of the ones that I recommend, which I said back when I was discussing the sense of hearing, is I would recommend doing Honey, 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 Honey Lion and reading the story, as well as creating a rhythm band. So being able to create their own instruments and use materials that they have around the classroom. Rubber bands, Kleenex boxes can make a little mini guitar, etc. So exploring how to make an instrument from reusable materials, which is a really great connection again to STREAM too. And then another really fun one is if you're doing Honey, Honey Lion, there's an African safari, same person, and it's all about the animals from Honey, Honey Lion. And then you can do Make a Honey, Honey Lion rhythm band, all of which are at the bottom of your session 10, further explorations, because they're highly recommended. There are also a lot of things listed at the very end of your academy. if you look to the last few pages, you will see 5 Senses SciShow Kids YouTube links for each one of them. They have it's a breakdown of every single sense and all the different things that you can watch or have the students watch as you expand. Really, really great stuff. SciKids is really awesome. So again, you have so much available to you. This is a very self-guiding, easy to follow academy, and it is just so much fun. It's really an exciting way to take something as mundane as what are the 5 senses to what are they, but let's explore them and let's create with them our own experience. So I hope you enjoyed it. That is my presentation. And if you have any questions, of course, like I said, you can always reach out. We also appreciate if you don't have anything in your kit that you need, that you let us know. But again, you have so much available to you. Take a look, enjoy, explore, and have fun learning with your students about our super power senses. Bye.